Thanks everyone for joining us. I'm so excited. I'm Sadra Pinkerton. I am the director for the Entrepreneurs and Community Lawyering Program, which is the DBA program for attorneys launching their own practices to help everyday people. I think I see some people here from Toji and some people here from Relaunch, and it's great to see everyone here. So we are joined by Anjie V, and I tried to, practice pronouncing her name before you guys came in, and she said, I tell everybody just say Anjie V. So excited to have her here. And I know that in the email you got some information about her, but she's just going to introduce herself and give you a little more info. And basically, she is here to teach us how to get our LinkedIn act together. And I need it as much as anybody else does. So I'm really excited that you're here, Anjie.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be talking to you all. I actually read about your program a couple of years ago, and I've been meaning to reach out and tell you how amazing I think it is. And I really look forward to talking to you guys today. I just wanted to start off by introducing myself and letting you know, like, wherever you are in your LinkedIn journey, you are ahead of where I was. So like wherever I started off using LinkedIn, I think, got onto LinkedIn in college many moons ago and did not, really update my profile very often, only updated it whenever I was hunting for a job. I don't even think I had a profile photo on for like many years. And then, once I became a young lawyer, I still wasn't good at using LinkedIn. I practiced for about 4 years before ever changing my LinkedIn profile. And that was only when I switched jobs to another job. And I just updated it once in a while. But up until I would say March 2020, like the first month of the pandemic where we were all going into lockdown, I was using LinkedIn in a completely different way than I do now. And it has just unlocked just a world of opportunities and possibilities that I just did not know existed. And I think it's really important for lawyers to start educating themselves on how to be really productive with LinkedIn, because it is just an insanely powerful tool. So up until March 2020, I logged into LinkedIn maybe once every 6 months to just check, to make sure I updated my profile or just looked to see what all of my contacts were doing. But I really didn't know how to actively engage in the LinkedIn community. And times have changed. LinkedIn has become a content creation platform. It has become a true networking platform. Think of LinkedIn as a networking event that is open 24/7. That room is open all day long and people are talking in it. So like you can go in there at any time, find clients, find employees, future employees you want to hire, find people you want to collaborate with, find bar associations that you want to speak for, whatever it is, LinkedIn has it. So I think it's a really powerful tool, and you can gain a lot of success on it very quickly. So from March 2020, I had about 1,200 connections from like the first 5 years of my practice and from college and everything else. Until now, I think I have now like over 10,000 connections. So basically all of that happened within about a year and a half. So I can tell you right now that it's not going to take a huge amount of your time. I think most people are really afraid, like, I don't have time to do this because I'm practicing law full time. I totally get it. So I will give you a lot of tips on how to just do these things very quickly. And I want this to be really practical today. I have a presentation, but I want this to be really interactive. So feel free to just get on camera, dive in, ask me questions. If you have a question about your own profile as we're going along, I would love to just, help you like in real time. So first thing I want you to do is I took a look at the registration report, and it looks like pretty much everybody who signed up has a profile. So go ahead and pull up your own personal profile, like on LinkedIn right now. I'll just give you like 2 minutes to do that so that you can kind of have it in front of you and think about what we're talking about as we're going along. So I'll go ahead and let you have a moment to do that. If you can like raise your hand when you have it open, that'll help me know when I can move on. So, but yeah. And while we're talking about that, just to give you like more background on me, I was an intellectual property lawyer for about 4.5 years before I decided to leave the practice and launch my own startup that provides a mentoring program for pre-law students. So we connect lawyers with pre-law students, and so they can do some career exploration. And I help teach these students how to network, build relationships, do LinkedIn profiles, all of that thing. So I've been doing this for a while, and I have heard every excuse in the book as to why people don't want to use LinkedIn. So there's been some really creative ones. Some people are like, I'm too old for LinkedIn. I don't know how to use this, and I haven't been on it in 5 years. I assure you that is not the case, because I thought that too, and I was able to overcome that. Some people say, I don't have enough experience, so I can't use LinkedIn. And that's totally false. Some of my pre-law students are absolutely rocking it on LinkedIn, and they're college students. They have 0 work experience. So I think whatever level you are at professionally, you can succeed on LinkedIn and do really well. Our focus today is going to be working on your profile. We'll talk about how to dive in and engage with people on LinkedIn next time, but bare minimum, you should have your own house in order. Today, we're going to talk about your photo, your profile photo, creating a LinkedIn banner, getting attention-catching headlines, crafting a professional and authentic summary, visually representing your own accomplishments and work experience, and describing your work experience more effectively, and then requesting LinkedIn recommendations. So we're going to go through all the pieces of your profile pretty mechanically, but again, feel free to just like unmute yourself and ask questions as we go along. First, I just wanted to start off with some LinkedIn stats. These blew me away. I just updated these last week, and I am just so surprised because it's changed a ton. First, there's 810 million users on LinkedIn in the United States. Or I'm sorry, 810 million users in the world. There's 185 million users in the United States. 510,000 of those people in the US have either a JD, LLM, or LLB degree. So there's still way more lawyers that should be getting on LinkedIn, is basically my takeaway from that. It's highly underutilized by the legal profession, which is great news for all of you, because if you're going to be using LinkedIn to connect with people, to find clients, to find employees, that means there's not a lot of other lawyers competing with you. These are LinkedIn users in the United States by age group. So, most of the people that you're talking to are professionals. LinkedIn requires that you have to be at least 18 years old to get on it. And by and large, most people are in their early career, 25 to 34. And then, everyone else you're talking to is basically a professional. So this is a great platform for you to be engaging with potential clients every single day, with people that you can hire, with other people who are interested in the same types of law as you. It can just be a really, really great place to meet people. So setting up a profile. These are the key profile pieces. Your first impression is everything that's above that message button. So you have a profile photo. You have a LinkedIn banner in the background. You have, you can now add pronunciation for your name. Like my name's a really difficult name. So I add pronunciation. Basically, they just have you record it on your phone, and you'll have the pronunciation icon next to your name. So you can hit the little speaker button and people will know how to say your name. You can also add your pronouns to be more inclusive. You can add a headline. So all of these key pieces will show people who you are. And you want to make sure you add all of these elements in order to capture people right away. So, pretty much I look at just this part and decide, like, am I going to read more, engage with this person further, or click to the next person? So all of these elements are customizable, and we'll talk about that more in depth. And we'll go through each piece. Okay. So for profile photos, you want something that's in professional attire. You want it closely cropped, good lighting. You want to look approachable, and you want to look directly into the camera. I cannot tell you how many people I have seen that are using profile photos that like make them look like they're really angry, or that like it might be a mugshot. Like you want to look really approachable. So try to find, a professional headshot. Just know that LinkedIn's profile icon is really, really small. And so you want a close-up crop on your headshot. Don't just use like your standard headshot that, your firm might give you or your school gives you or something like that. Like that might be a little too far out. So crop it close and use the editor in LinkedIn to get it close enough to where you can see your face clearly, not just when you're on your profile, but in search results. So what I would do is like go search your own name and look how you appear in the search results and see, like, can they see enough of your face? If not, then you might want to do a closer crop. Some things that might not be so good are the LinkedIn photo editor also tends to make your photos darker. So make sure that the photo that you start off with has a lot of good lighting. So like this is a professional photo, but she looks a little bit dark. She's far away from the camera. So when you look at her in the search results, it's hard to see her. The bottom left here, he's got kind of like a weird lighting shade on him. So it's just kind of hard to see him and it makes him really, really dark. And then the bottom right, like you can clearly tell that this is like somebody's maybe firm profile photo that they took. It still has the word proof written on it. It's like cropped in a weird way where they just tried to make a, profile photo out of a different shaped photo. So just, be mindful of all those things. Like this is your first impression. So you want to make sure that you come off, professional and personable. If you need to take your own headshot, I have some tips for you. But you don't have to have go out to a professional and get a headshot. Like it's easy to get a professional looking headshot, even just at home with a smartphone. So this is one that I took, with one of my students. And so basically you want to get high up on the angle, and then make sure that when you crop it close, that you crop it really close around her face. We lightened it a little bit so that it would be optimized for LinkedIn, but I mean, pretty much this was just the photo as is taken. So you can just get up on a solid color wall, have somebody take it for you because it's going to be a little hard for you to take it on your own. Don't take a selfie. And then make sure that they're, kind of shooting down at you, maybe have you in a chair, or, if you're standing up, make sure that they're taller than you. But you want to have like a dramatic looking photo that is cropped close. Okay. LinkedIn banners. Okay. So the default banner is what you see in the top left. Most people have that on their banners right now. But that banner behind you is literally the largest thing on your profile. It is a billboard. So if you are not utilizing that billboard, like you're missing out on a key opportunity. So you can customize that billboard by creating a graphic in Canva. Canva is a free graphics editing tool. It allows you to make marketing materials, all sorts of great things. But if you just search LinkedIn banners, it has LinkedIn banner templates. So you can just use that to create something that represents your firm. And or yourself. Like it's fine for you to use images that look like it represents something about your practice or something about you. That's totally fine. These three banners at the bottom are examples of things that I see on LinkedIn. Some people have, a banner that represents their interests, diversity, equity, inclusion. Some people have just images. If you're looking for high resolution images, that are royalty free and you don't have to worry about the copyright, go to unsplash.com, unsplash.com. And you can find high resolution images that are royalty free. And so you can find something that represents yourself. Just at least put some effort into this area so that people know like you're being intentional about LinkedIn. So headlines are the other really underutilized thing. People will typically just put lawyer or JD candidate or, maybe immigration lawyer or something that describes like exactly what they do. But that headline is long, folks. You can put all sorts of things in there. And I would put things in there that talk about your practice area, maybe any leadership roles that you hold. So if you're a chair of some committee, if you're, involved in some professional organizations, involved in some special program, like I would put that in your headline and include things that describe your passions and interests. Show people you have passions and interests. If I go to somebody's profile and it just says, trademark lawyer, I'm like, oh, that's great. That tells me what they do. That doesn't really make me want to engage with them. But these are 3 examples of some lawyers that I know that, have added a lot of those extra information to their profiles. And it just helps you see that, there's so many more dimensions to these people. So I really, really encourage you to add some of these extra things into your profiles. And as you can see, they've also customized their banners. They have these closely cropped profile photos. So, really try to play around with everything that is above that message button in your profile to make sure that it looks dynamic, that it looks welcoming, and that people will want to engage with you. The next important part of your profile is the about section. And I view this as the "Are you human?" test. So, that like CAPTCHA thing that pops up on some websites, it's like, are you a human being? Select everything that has a crosswalk, or select all the images that has a motorcycle. Yeah, this is kind of my litmus test on LinkedIn. I go to your about section. I look if you're actually describing like, who you are in an authentic way, or if it literally just reads like a law firm bio, or if there's nothing there at all. And based on that information, I decide if I'm going to engage with you or not. So you really want to craft a professional and authentic summary in your about section. And the ways that you do that is you want to represent your own personal brand. If you've never had a personal brand, that's totally fine. All you have to think about is, what do you do? How do you do it? Why do you do it? And think about those 3 aspects. If you're a trademark and copyright lawyer, who do you actually want to serve? Like, why are you doing this? Do you like helping small businesses? Do you like helping entrepreneurs? Do you like, working with people who are really passionate about music? Like, what are you doing and why are you doing it? And talk about those things in your about section. Write conversationally in the first person. Like, save your third person voice for your law firm bios. But on LinkedIn, we want to engage with you. We want to know you're a real human. So talk in the first person like you would talk to somebody at a networking event. You're not going to go to a networking event and introduce yourself and say, Anjie is a trademark and copyright lawyer in Washington, D.C. Like, that's just not how it happens. So, talk conversationally in this section. Vary your sentence structure and use, some short sentences, some longer sentences. Just write conversationally. So, try to vary up your sentence structure and sound like a human being. Break it up with some white space so that people aren't just like slammed with a whole paragraph of text. People don't want to see a giant block of text pretty much ever. Like, you'll see that on social media, people like to break up, the paragraph structure. And, in social media posts on pretty much every platform, they encourage you to write that way. Proofread. Like, this about section might be the only thing they read. So make sure it is pristine. And finally, something that very few people do, but you should do, is include a call to action. Tell people who you want to connect with. Have a call to action in the about section that says, if you're interested in commercial litigation, or if you have a business problem that you want to discuss, reach out to me, email me, or book a consultation with me. Whatever it is, have a call to action that encourages people to engage with you. And it doesn't have to just be potential clients. You can be really broad about it. If you want to say anybody who's interested in the intersection of music and the law, perfect. I'm willing to connect with you. Let's do a virtual coffee chat, something, but encourage people to engage with you in some way. It just shows that you're being friendly and you're approachable. So, I know I'm kind of blazing through this, so I just wanted to stop for a second and ask if you guys have any questions about anything that I talked about. How are we doing?
I can't find my about section. So how's that for a terrible LinkedIn profile?
No worries. Okay, I went back and recorded this section since we had some questions about how to find the about section on your profile, and I have content creation mode turned on my profile. So my profile probably shows different fields and sections than a new profile. So I started up a new profile on LinkedIn, just signed up as Jane Smith, and created this initial profile. To find the about section, you go to add profile section, and you can hit add about in the core. And this is where you can talk about your about section, and it'll then appear on your profile. So once you hit save, when you scroll down, you'll see the about section down here. So I hope that clears things up. Sorry I wasn't able to find it in the original presentation, but that's where you would find it now. If you already have the about section in your profile somewhere, but it just isn't highlighted at the top, you might just need to scroll down past these resources suggested for you, all of these sections to find it. Most of the time you won't be able to see other sections above your about section if you are viewing it from the standpoint of somebody who is not you. So when other people are searching you, you pop up in the search results and they look at your profile, you're not going to see all these things here. And you may, if you want to see what your profile looks like to other people, you can look at the public profile and URL. That's what your profile will look like to people who are searching you. So it doesn't have all of those suggested things that LinkedIn has when you're looking at your own profile as yourself. The default on your profile is if you don't have a featured section, it'll just show the about section as the first thing. So I wanted to just kind of show you guys my profile and some of the things that I added here and like why it might look a little bit different than what you're used to seeing. So let me share my screen and we'll go to my profile. Okay, so here's some of the things that we talked about, my photo, the background image. This I customized in Photoshop, but I also used to have one on here that was really basic that was customized in Canva. So Canva is a fine tool to use. In my name, because my first name is also spelled differently than the typical spelling, I also put like the regular phonetic spelling in my in quotations. And then I have the pronunciation feature here as well. And in my headline, I do a lot more to talk about like some of the other interests that I have besides just being an IP attorney. And then this talks about piece, this is new. So just like a few months ago, LinkedIn allowed you to turn on what's called like a content creation part of your profile. You might see that as you're editing your profile. It might ask you to turn on that feature. But when you turn that feature on, you're allowed to show people what you intend to talk about on LinkedIn. If you intend to start creating content and posting on LinkedIn regularly, you may want to turn on that feature and add these hashtags, because now whenever somebody searches these hashtags in LinkedIn, your profile will pop up and people will be able to follow your conversations. So down here is the featured section that I was talking about. When you want to highlight certain accomplishments that you've done, you want to add things in the featured section. If you start posting on LinkedIn and you want people to see specific posts, you can click the add button here, and then it'll say add a post or add a newsletter, article, link, media. So you can pretty much add whatever you want. Like if you want to highlight one of your posts, you can do that. Newsletters are great. A lot of my attorney friends who are in a specific practice area are writing their own newsletters that people are subscribing to and reading, about contemporary issues in their practice area. That's a great way to reach your audience. You can add articles that you've written, add links to third-party websites, and you can also add media. So if you've done presentations like CLE presentations, you can add that there as well. Yeah. So in my about section, you can see, I'm really conversational in mine. I use emojis, I try to break things up a lot, and it's totally a matter of style. If that is not comfortable for you and you want to, present a much more professional and maybe safer seeming profile, that's totally fine. But just let that represent your personality in some sort of way. Make sure that you're writing conversationally at least and trying to reach the audience that you intend to reach. So let me go back to the presentation. Does anybody else have any questions of things we talked about?
This is Leslie Turnage. I don't see the where you were talking about adding the hashtags and things like that for current creation.
Yeah. So that's the content creation feature. Okay. So I wanted to highlight creator mode a little bit more in response to this question. So I'm refilming this. And if you go here, LinkedIn has made it possible for us now to create content and promote ourselves as a creator on the platform. So if you click on creator mode, you'll see that there's this little creator hub pop-up that'll come on, and if you turn it off, then you won't be able to add these topics. But if you turn it on, then you'll be able to add these topics, and then you can also do LinkedIn Live and newsletters to help you reach your audience. So LinkedIn Live is their version of live video. So think like Instagram Live, Facebook Live. That's basically LinkedIn Live. So newsletters, this is another feature that they've just recently created that allows you to create basically newsletters that'll come through the LinkedIn platform that'll be promoted to your audience. So they have to subscribe to your newsletters and then they'll get your content on LinkedIn. So you can add your topics that you talk about up here so that people know what to follow you for. So I've added all of my topics up here. You can choose whatever hashtags are important to you. My suggestion is to do a search for hashtags in the LinkedIn search bar and find out how many people follow each hashtag. When you search for that hashtag, if you go into one of the posts that has the hashtag in it, then you can click on this hashtag and it'll tell you how many people actually follow it. Now, LinkedIn has been playing around with hashtags for a while now, trying to figure out ways to make them more productive on the platform. We've seen a lot of changes in the LinkedIn algorithm over the last year, but it's still clear that hashtags are still highly relevant. The more people who follow that hashtag, the more people that search for that topic will find your content. So if you want to use hashtags to promote yourself or your content on LinkedIn, then it's a good idea to know which hashtags have the most followers and which ones are being shown more often. Sometimes you'll be able to find a list of trending hashtags on LinkedIn, sometimes you won't. But if you keep doing these searches to figure out how many followers are assigned to or follow each hashtag, then you're more likely to show up in search results. And you'd be surprised. There's still a lot of phrases out there that I think are common vernacular that are probably pretty popular hashtags on Instagram or Facebook, but they're not popular on LinkedIn. So you want to be doing LinkedIn specific searches for hashtags to see how many followers they have specifically on this platform before you decide whether or not you want to use that to promote your content or in creator mode to add that to your profile. Okay, your featured section. That part that I was talking about where you can add all of these links, think about ways to like visually represent yourself. So if you have a firm website, right, you want to have a link to your firm's website in the featured section. If you want people to be able to book consultations with you and you're trying to get new business, have a link to your Calendly or your scheduling tool. I use Calendly. Some people use Appointly. Whatever scheduling tool you use, those scheduling tools save so much time. Whenever I'm trying to schedule a meeting with somebody, I just send them my scheduling link. It pulls up. It'll sync to all of your calendars, your work calendar, your Outlook, everything, Gmail, whatever you're using. And then it'll only, show your available blocks of time, and people can just basically pick your available slots of time. You can customize it in a bunch of different ways. So you can block off, certain times on certain days, however you want to schedule it. But, use some sort of tool like Calendly or Appointly to allow people to schedule meetings with you very quickly. They also have like ways that you can charge people for consultations through Calendly. So they have a PayPal and Stripe integration into them. And so you can, charge people for consultations through there and then still put your link onto your featured section. So you can say, book a call with me to talk about, whatever legal issues that you cover. And that way people can just immediately go straight to you through your LinkedIn page. That can be a really powerful tool. I mean, what you're trying to do is basically lower the barriers to talking to you. You're trying to make it easier and remove some of the friction. So, make yourself approachable, put your contact information in here in some way, shape, or form. I wouldn't suggest putting your email address in the contact info at the top though, because you're going to get a bunch of spam. So I would make sure that like you play around with your settings so that you don't put an email address that's like your firm address in the top part. But if you use Calendly or something like that, it's just like a gateway so that only like certain people can book with you. So yeah, have those types of things in your featured section. If you're presenting at an event, talking at a CLE, something like that, you can highlight that in your featured section. There's just like so many ways for you to make this more dynamic so that people see, some of the things that you're doing. Like give yourself some credit for the things that you're doing because you're probably out there hustling and doing a lot of things. So make sure that you use this featured section as a visual representation of kind of the extra things that you're doing. The activity section. So this is this area right underneath the featured section, or usually it's, at the top of your profile somewhere, shows what you've been up to on LinkedIn in the last 90 days. And not everybody loves this feature because sometimes you go to that section and you realize you haven't been on LinkedIn in 90 days or maybe a year. And that's okay. But what I encourage you to do is when you're trying to engage with people on LinkedIn, go to the activity section, scroll down to that section of their profile, see when they were last on LinkedIn. Because if they're posting things every day, if they're engaging with other people every day on LinkedIn, they're a lot more likely to respond to like a cold message if you message them there. If you see that they haven't logged in on LinkedIn for like 6 months, that's probably not a great place to contact them. Scroll up to their contact info, find out if there's an email address there. If there is, email them instead of reaching them out on LinkedIn, because it might not be the best place to reach them. Or just Google search them and see if you can find, whatever their email address is. Because you want to make sure you're trying to reach your audience in the best way possible. A lot of my students, I teach them how to reach out to lawyers for informational interviews. And I tell them, check out their activity section. If they're not active on LinkedIn, then you probably shouldn't be trying to reach them here. Go where your audience is. So, that section automatically populates. So just know that when you start poking around on LinkedIn and interacting and sharing things and posting things, that activity section will start moving. In your work experience. Okay, so this is the area that I see the most missed opportunities. If you're trying to make this experience section look like the experience section on your resume, I think that's a huge missed opportunity. You want this to be more interactive, more conversational, again, showing that you're a real human being. So there's ways in your experience section to add little media links, the same way that you can add in the featured section. In your experience section, when you're describing your work experience, you can really describe it in a way like you would want to reach your clients, talk to them in a conversational tone. If you're an immigration lawyer, you want to just list off the types of matters that you help people with, but why do you help them with that? Talk to them in a way that shows your compassion and shows your counseling skills. You really want to kind of highlight these experiences in a different way than you would on a resume. You're not trying to get hired at a law firm. You're trying to talk to people who need your services. So think about the ways that you want to do that. And you can add media to that area too. So if you want to add representative articles that you've written at that firm, or, or presentations you've given at that firm, or things that you're doing that you want to highlight in that section, use those media links to do that. You can also highlight other pieces of your professional experience, you can add your education, your skills, all those things. But honestly, for me, I just look at the top part, and then I look at the about section, and then I look at maybe at some of the featured things that they have. And if something hasn't interested me in that amount of time, then I just move on. So all those other pieces of your profile are kind of icing on the cake. The final piece that I wanted to talk about is recommendations. So LinkedIn recommendations are social gold. They're social capital. They show that somebody has interacted with you and worked with you and, approve of your work. So I would, highly encourage you to seek out recommendations, either if it's from clients in the forms of testimonials, or recommendations from, past bosses or supervisors about the quality of your work. I would encourage you to try to seek out recommendations, because it just helps humanize you even more. LinkedIn only allows you to seek out recommendations from your first connections. So just know that, if you're, if you need to reach out to an old supervisor or old boss, old client or something, you'll have to find them and connect with them on LinkedIn first, and then you'll be able to request a recommendation from them. If they're not on LinkedIn often, you might want to reach out with an email first and say, hey, I'm updating my LinkedIn profile. I'm trying to update my recommendations. Would you be willing to write me a recommendation? I'll send you a link. That way they know they're looking out for it. And then once you've done that in LinkedIn, you can point that out. But yeah, those are basically the key pieces that I wanted to talk to you about. I think when people are searching for potential lawyers to talk to, or, trying to network with people on LinkedIn, ultimately, they just want to know that you're a real human being that is willing to talk to them. So the more that you can do to make yourself, seem like a human, and the more that you can talk about your values and the reasons that you're getting into the things that you're getting into, the reasons that you started practicing in the area that you're practicing in, or why you've joined certain organizations. Those types of things just help people know that you're passionate and you're energetic and you care about the things that you're doing. So really focus on trying to highlight those pieces in your profile. Next time around, we're going to talk more about engagement. How do you start identifying who you want to talk to on LinkedIn? How do you start driving conversations? What can you post about? How do you start engaging on other people's posts? I think LinkedIn's focus on content creation has shifted a lot in the last few years, and content creation grew like 60% in 2020, and it's grown even more than that in 2021. So, I think definitely content is here to stay, and you need to start engaging in the conversation and creating content. And by content, I mean just like posting or sharing or engaging on other people's posts. Like all of that can be content. If you're literally creating content, like you're writing books or you're doing podcasts or things like that, that's also content that you can share there. So we'll talk about those opportunities for engagement next time, but today was kind of just to focus on, let's get everything set up first, and then you can dive into all those other pieces.
Angie, thanks so much. Could you talk a little bit about the presentation that's coming up on March 29th, the panel talking about networked?
Yes. Okay. So when I started interacting on LinkedIn and I dove into the conversation, I magically found other female lawyers that were also diving into LinkedIn at the same time. So, when March 2020 happened and we were all going into lockdown, I am a super extrovert. So I was like, help, I'm going to die if I can't interact with people. And so I started getting on LinkedIn, and slowly but surely I started discovering there's other lady lawyers on there, and they're all trying to figure this out alongside me. And so one of us, we all met on this Zoom networking event at some point, and somebody had this great idea to throw us all into a group DM together. And so it was just a giant group chat on LinkedIn. And we found out that the max amount of people you can put in a group DM on LinkedIn is 40. And then we had to move it to WhatsApp. But we mostly interact on LinkedIn still. So once we started interacting together, at some point in June or July, one of us was like, we should write a book about this, because all of us are navigating this for the first time. We're all having very different experiences. And we're all in different practice areas. So that was really cool, kind of seeing how each of us is using it for our businesses and practice areas. And we were like, let's write a book. So 20 of us got together and wrote, each one of us wrote a chapter, and it is called Networked, and it's available on Amazon. And I'm going to bring some of the ladies of Networked to talk to you guys about our experience on how this kind of changed the way we use LinkedIn, and how we've really been able to find support from each other through this. So, one thing in preparation of doing that, I would love to get maybe a Google document going of all of your LinkedIn profiles, so you can all connect with each other. I think if you all want to be able to help out each other, LinkedIn focuses on creating mini communities of people. So the beautiful thing about when I started interacting with all these lady lawyers is I all of a sudden had access to their networks, and they had access to mine. So LinkedIn shows you pretty much most of the content comes from your connections or the connections of your connections. And that's how it creates these mini ecosystems. So when I started interacting with a lot of other lady lawyers, I started getting access to their networks and connections. That was more lawyers, more clients, more people. So you want to start, engaging in the conversation, because it's going to start changing the way that you're being presented with different users and people. Your search results will start changing. The types of content that you see will start changing. So, we'll talk about that more next time, but you'll be able to hear about our experiences in, basically how that happened to us. One of the things that I saw when we started all interacting together was that the types of content and posts I was seeing. I used to, like, when I logged into LinkedIn, it was mostly people who were like, I just, wrote an awesome article on something, or I'm, going to be the head partner at, such and such law firm. And like, it was mostly kind of like bragging announcements, and that's okay, but like, that's not the content I wanted to see. I wanted to see people who were driving more authentic conversations about topics that I cared about. And so once I started seeing that stuff and, liking and sharing and commenting on those posts, that was telling the LinkedIn algorithm what was important to me. So all of my feeds started changing a lot because I started seeing things that were much more relevant to me. And that made me want to get on LinkedIn more. I mean, that's the whole point. So I think when we talk next time and you start hearing the experiences of the other people who wrote this book with me, you'll be able to kind of see that, like, it may seem like LinkedIn is a cold, dark place that, is really hands off right now. But once you start meeting real people on there and engaging and seeing, like, there's a lot of other humans just like you interested in the things that you're doing, and there's so many opportunities to collaborate with people and follow thought leaders in your area and just really, dive into that community, it'll seem a lot more exciting. So that's what I hope to do with this next panel is, show you that, all of us live in completely different areas. We would have never ran into each other in the real world. We practice in different areas. We're not going to the same conferences. We're not going to anything in common. So I think, it just goes to show the power of LinkedIn on bringing people together. And, some of these ladies, like, I was talking to them every single day during the pandemic. They knew me better than, like, some of my best friends. We were really relying on each other, asking each other, hey, how is this impacting your practice? How are you dealing with, remote training? How are you, handling your summer associate program? Like all these things, like, we were all talking to each other about it, so that, you felt like you were so plugged into the community. And I think that it could be really hard to find that when we're all remote working. So, being able to find that community on LinkedIn has been just so important to me. And I highly encourage you guys to just start diving in and playing around with it. I saw there's some questions in the chat. How far back should you add experiences? However far back you think it's relevant. If you have 15 years of experience and you've moved around in different practice areas and you think all of that is important, like, include it all. Like, your LinkedIn profile isn't like your resume. It's not limited in, real estate. You don't have just one page, right? So, like, add whatever you think is relevant. If you have, I wouldn't go back to, like, if you had, 15 retail jobs in college, like, I might not add those, but yeah, anything that you think is relevant from your professional experience on, I would add that. Let's see, how should our businesses have LinkedIn pages too? Yes. Although LinkedIn's business pages aren't as powerful as they can be yet. And, I can talk about that some more in our next meeting. But yes, you can create your own firm page on LinkedIn. I would, until you create your own firm page on LinkedIn, just have a link to your firm's website in your featured section, just like as a placeholder for now. And then we can talk about, like, what features that you might want to use on your business page to really highlight yourself. But for now, I would at least have a link to your firm's bio or a firm's website, if that makes sense. Does anybody else have any questions? I know we're at 1:00. I don't have a hard stop, so I'm happy to stay and take any extra questions, but.
Any other questions? Anyone? All right. Well, it sounds like you covered it all. Thank you so much for all that information. Really looking forward to seeing you in the panel on the 29th. And then we get you back again in April to talk more about how to engage. So looking forward to that as well.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks so much. Round of applause for you, Anjie. Appreciate it.
Excited to see all of your profiles.
All right. Thanks so much.
For including
Thanks, Anjie.
Koji Thank you for including Toji Lawyers. We're appreciative.
Yeah.
Glad you guys were here.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.